Just a quick message to our audience out there. Please remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe. It really helps our content reach more people, and it adds to our algorithm. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for another episode of On Patrol with the Suffolk PBA. I'm CJ Hunter, the treasurer of the PBA.
I'm Tanner Brandemar, the sergeant at arms of the PBA.
And today we're excited to have two guests, two people that we've spoken about in the past on prior episodes. Dr. Vosswinkel, he's the medical director for Suffolk County Police Department and the chief trauma surgeon at Stony Brook University Hospital. And Detective Tim Thrane, former 7th Precinct police officer. We used to work together, and just one of those guys that everybody in the department really looks up to. So thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Dr. Vosswinkel, we talk a lot about the MedCAT unit on this show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your history with getting involved in the police department and a little bit about what the MedCAT unit is?
Absolutely. So it was back in 2012 that I first joined the department as a consulting police surgeon. I've been in practice since 2002 and over the years advanced to the chief of trauma surgery at Stony Brook University Hospital. As a trauma surgeon, just as obviously a law enforcement officer, we unfortunately sometimes see the worst of the worst. And I wish the world was better than it was. I wish people drove safer than they did. I wish people acted nicer to each other. But it's really law enforcement that's out there holding everything together. So obviously anyone getting hurt is a tragedy. But when a law enforcement officer comes in hurt, it gets us to the core. Back in 2012, I was asked to be part of the department. To help out in more of a capacity. And then in 2019, I was asked to take over the actual ambulance agency for the department, become the medical director. Part of that is also running a unit called MedCAT. MedCAT stands for the Medical Crisis Action Team. It's what houses the advanced life support providers in the ambulance agency, specifically our paramedics. When you look at people who are injured or hurt, seconds matter, minutes matter. Getting patients to the right spot at the right time is utmost importance. By having just not obviously every Suffolk County police officer is an EMT who are on the scene initially at all aided cases, but having an additional level of support, having tactical medics, people with advanced life support who can do a higher level of care really is such a blessing for everyone in this county, such an asset, which you will not find around the state at all. And what it does cannot be understated. So as of 2019, I picked up that unit, and a lot of advancement has occurred in that unit, thankfully, due to the leadership in department and really the county executive and the county leadership. Once again, so having said that, if you want someone to live, you want somebody to survive, getting assets there immediately, intervening immediately, getting the patient to the right spot is really of the utmost importance so that they can have a positive outcome.
Yeah, so I started my career off in New York City in the NYPD. And when I came out to Suffolk County and I found out that not only were we all going to become EMTs, but we also had this MedCAT team out there. It was something I had never heard of before. And I was blown away by it. I was like, we have our combat medics out there on the road serving the community and helping protect the police officers who are putting themselves in danger every day as well. And I was blown away by this program that we have here. And you just mentioned it, you won't find anything like it anywhere else in the state.
No, you won't. And as I said, it's such an asset that more and more people find out about it. They realize it. It works hand in hand with the very important volunteer services we have in this county. Mm-hmm. We have 107 volunteer ambulance agencies in this county that provide the vast bulk of the work to all of the 1.5 million people in this county. So by having police officers and EMTs and having an advanced life support, get involved, it really brings the level of care to such a high level. Everyone in this county should be extremely, extremely happy, a lot of gratitude to what goes on. At the end of the day, I live in a hospital. I live in a protected environment. So what our EMTs do, volley or sworn, what our paramedics do, volley or sworn, what they do when they go out there every day, and that you guys go out and do it for us, we all owe you a huge debt of gratitude.
Well, thank you for that. And, one of the things that we speak about fairly often here is one of the values to the MedCAT team is, there are other paramedics out there that work for ambulance companies and such, but our MedCAT guys are also armed police officers.
Correct.
So if it comes to an active shooter situation or something where there's a lot ongoing danger, it's an evolving event, it's invaluable to the residents of Suffolk County to be able to have police officers respond that are also paramedics, that have the EMT training. It's a little different than sending unarmed personnel into a situation.
100%. Because, in any aided scene, the first thing they teach all EMTs, paramedics is scene safety. And that they're not supposed to engage, get involved, or provide aid unless the scene is safe. That's the first rule. Obviously, by having police officers do this, you get aid to the victims and to the people in need much, much quicker, because what a police officer can do compared to a volunteer, black and white. Absolutely.
Yeah, so obviously I want to talk more about MedCAT and get some more of that messaging out there. But we have Tim Thrane here also. So Tim, why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your work history? Like, where do you work? Where did you start your career?
So I currently work in the 7th Precinct, in the 7th Precinct Detective Squad as a detective. I started my career in the 7th Precinct. I was hurt in the line of duty, 3 years on the job. I spent a year out of work while I was still hurt and recovering. When I came back, I was still light duty for a while. I went to our emergency service unit as their admin guy. I was light duty, and ended up getting to go back full duty. Went back to the 7th into our PCS unit. Now I believe it's PIU, and spent 6-7 months there. Was promoted to detective to the 7th Precinct Detective Squad, where I still currently am.
Yeah. So when you got to the 7th Precinct, you're on the 2-tour schedule. You're part of Squad 1. I was a midnight guy on patrol, and we actually worked the same car together. Yep. So we used to see each other often. We would relieve each other, talk about the conditions in the precinct, conditions in the sector. And I always saw it from very early on that you were very into doing this job the right way. You took a lot of pride in being a police officer, and you wanted to make sure that the people around you were safe as well. You were one of those guys, or you are one of those guys, that the police officers that work with you, they have a lot of faith in you and your ability to do the job appropriately the right way.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I love this job. I still enjoy going to work every day, and I do take pride in it. I'm fortunate enough to not just work in Suffolk County, but in the 7th Precinct, where I've lived my whole life. My kids, we still live in the 7th Precinct. My kids go to school there. A lot of my family's there. So there is more of a sense of pride in taking care of my own community.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So, like I said before, I started my career in the NYPD, and I always did the job, right? I always did it appropriately to the best of my ability. But there is that slight different level of pride when you're policing where you live, right? It's inevitable. It's human nature. Right? And, again, in the 7th Precinct, that's where I grew up too. And that's where I lived most of my life. So I totally understand the pride that comes with policing your hometown and community.
Yeah. And also I worked New York City Corrections prior to getting on this job at Rikers Island. And while it's still law enforcement, it's a very different job. It's more, it's reactive. You just kind of sit there and wait, and where this job, you can be proactive. And I enjoy that aspect of policing. I think that's the fun part of policing to me. And getting on this job, it just felt like this is the right job for me. It's a perfect fit, and I still enjoy it.
All right. So, you already touched on it. You got hurt at work back in 2021. At that point, you were still relatively young on the job. You're a young, cop out there trying to do the best he can, and you got hurt. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that night that you got hurt? What happened? What transpired?
So, William Floyd Parkway, there's a new Walmart there in Yaphank. It's not so new anymore, but it wasn't open yet that night. It was opening the next day. We had a bad motor vehicle accident at that intersection, the light going into Walmart. it looked like it could be serious physical injury. So we were holding the scene for possibly detectives, or while the one victim in the accident was transported to the hospital. We were waiting to see her status. I said, I'll go up to the next intersection north. It's Colonial Woods, Whispering Pine there on William Floyd Parkway. And I would divert all the southbound traffic while we hold this scene. So I had my PD in the left lane and a flare line in the right lane blocking traffic, forcing all the traffic to either make a right or a U-turn at that intersection. Now, I was there for a few hours, and I don't remember the accident, but there was a New York City correction officer ironically stopped to ask me directions. And at the same time, I was bending down to change a road flare out. And so I kind of told him 1 second, and a drunk driver hit into his vehicle, into me, into the PD. All three vehicles were totaled. The correction officer ended up doing like a 360. I ended up underneath the vehicle. So he pulled me out. Cool. Now, like I said, I don't remember any of this. This is all from, he was the only witness from his accounts. He started calling 911 and running to the cops at the next intersection, which is a good distance. And before he can get there, the 911 call went over the radio, and all the cops came to me and started assessing me.
Okay. So, you know, I remember that night too, obviously. At that point in time, I was the 7th Precinct trustee, and we had several police officers in the 7th Precinct that were part of this MedCAT team. We had and just happened to be working somewhat nearby when this occurred too. Yeah. We were lucky enough to have Kevin Staubitz working nearby and Brian Koch. Yep. Right. So both of those guys, as part of the MedCAT team that you direct, Dr. Voss, you know, what sort of communication occurred? What would they be doing when something like this happens?
Absolutely. So if I make a take a second. So, you know, that night was election night, which is one of the hallmarks of our democracy. You know, it's the night that we can all go out and we can choose how we're going to be governed. And I was actually out with you guys.
Yeah, you were.
And we went to the Republican headquarters. We went to the Democratic headquarters. And, you know, once again, our vote, you know, our right. And to hear that a police officer had just been hit by a drunk driver that night really cut a lot of us, especially me, everybody probably, to the core. That the people here protecting us, upholding society, to happen on election night really was cut to the core. So when that call came over, it was obviously a very emotional moment. Fortunately, as you said, we'd had two of our tactical paramedics very close by. And they immediately responded to the scene. They immediately got on the phone with me, and they started giving me the lowdown on exactly what happened. You know, that we had an officer, he was unconscious. He was hit and thrown under a car. That mechanism alone, you obviously fear for the worst. Mm-hmm. They immediately started to ascertain his vitals. They immediately called for aviation because, as we know, that location, you're really not close to anything that has the right level of care to provide for anybody. Those steps right there, once again, as I was sort of alluding to in my earlier conversation, I can't tell you how critical that was. Why Timmy's sitting next to me. And Timmy is able to be back on the job and to be a father for his children and to have returned as well as we can. So once again, to what you alluded to have medics on a job, EMTs on a job. Remember, the volleys were coming, but they weren't there yet. And once again, that's not to disparage the volleys. You know, they do an important part. But to have those people there, the transport time and the stabilization that occurred when he got to me, also just alerting to me, I was sitting at Stony Brook by the time he got there. All right. So we were able to assemble our team. And not to move along, we'll go through, you know, the obviously the time course here, but other specialists needed to be involved. So to have everything mobilized, waiting to know exactly how hurt Timmy was, to know he was coming as expeditiously he can, is a point that we have to highlight very, very much how important the MedCAT service is, what the police department does, and unfortunately how dangerous it is out there for you guys. Because once again, on a hallmark of democracy, we had somebody who did something he shouldn't have, and we almost lost one of you guys.
Yeah, so I remember that night very clearly. Like you said, we were actually out for election night watching the results come in, and we were in a place where phone service constantly cuts in and out. Mm-hmm. So I actually refer to this all the time. Like, the only thing in this world that gives me anxiety is when my cell phone doesn't have service. And it's because of this night. One of my cops got hurt and my phone wasn't ringing. All of a sudden, Tanner actually came running in from the other side of the room. Mm-hmm. They said, CJ, a 7th precinct cop just got hurt. Like, you got to check your phone. It's like, I got no service. So I had to go outside. I actually ran to the street light down the corner, and I finally got service. And that's when all the messages started coming through. Mm-hmm. So that night, it has been the cause of anxiety for me for the last 5 years. But as you said, all seconds and minutes matter. Mm-hmm. So to be able to have Kevin Stalvitz and Brian Koch so
Correct.
Close at the time
Correct.
Was invaluable.
100%. 100%.
And once everything started getting into motion, all the right things were happening to give you the best opportunity for survival, right? So we all caravanned right over to the hospital. The police on scene got you transported to the hospital as quickly as possible. Other police officers on scene were going to your house to try to talk to your wife, notify your family what's going on, right? So a lot of balls start rolling all at the same time. So I remember vividly Dr. Voss and I outside of the ER entrance at the hospital as you arrive. So as Timmy's arriving, doctor, what's going through your mind? What are you doing with your team in preparation for Timmy's arrival, who is he's in critical condition?
Absolutely. So once again, it was a tremendous benefit that I was able to get knowledge from the scene. Mm-hmm. So I knew what I was concerned about. I was concerned about a severe head injury. I was concerned about orthopedic injury. And, for full disclosure, everyone listening to this is public record. So we're not disclosing any of the things that Timmy doesn't want us to disclose about his injuries.
Right.
And obviously, it's utmost respect to do that. Timmy got hit so hard that he fractured his skull and he ruptured the artery right inside the skull. So he had an arterial bleed starting in his brain. He also completely disrupted his shoulder, this big bone that hooks into your shoulder joint, that was gone. And it was evident early on from his neurologic status that he had a severe head injury. And we knew he obviously had a deformity to his arm. We knew that coming in. That allowed me to mobilize our neurosurgical team. We had the neurosurgical physician assistant actually standing in the hospital when he was coming. And the surgeon, the attending, was actually at home waiting. So because of the notification, it happened. Now, internally at Stony Brook, since we are a level 1 trauma center, we have all the bells and whistles. We have all the equipment we need. So everything was pre-activated. The operating room was ready. The CAT scanner was waiting. There was blood available. All the pieces were in place, which once again, you can look at a lot of things law enforcement does as well as trauma. It's a dumpster fire. And when you're going into a dumpster fire, you're basically treating and assessing at the same time. You don't have the luxury to sit back and say, which way am I going, right? And when someone severely comes in like that, mm-hmm. Hence how important it is to get information. So within minutes of Timmy coming in, he was already in the CAT scanner once we stabilized him. And we saw what's called an epidural hematoma, an epidural bleed, an arterial bleed. Right there, because of the size of it, we were concerned. And the operating room immediately started clearing a room and setting up a room for this specialized neurosurgical procedure. Okay? When we brought him back to the resuscitation bay, he started deteriorating neurologically very quickly. At that point in time, we quickly rescanned him and the blood in his head had doubled. Mm. So he went right to the operating room and the neurosurgeon was able to meet him in the operating room and to open his skull that quickly and decompress the pressure on his brain. So if we really want to put this at a time point, he gets hit. He's in the operating room with a very specialized injury and bleed and treatment, probably within an hour, which from the quote trauma desert area where he was, once again, there's not specialized care like that. There aren't neurosurgeons around. There aren't the people around. So for things to move that quickly, that's one reason Timmy is sitting here today, that we were able to move things that quickly from everything else. Not to move a little bit longer along in the story, but I will, since Timmy, you don't remember any of this, right? No. Timmy don't remember this. Unfortunately, from the sheer trauma he had after we got over that hurdle, Timmy's lungs got very, very sick. So the sheer degree of tissue damage, bruising, bleeding, caused an inflammatory response to his lungs. It's called adult respiratory distress syndrome, or ARDS. But essentially his body said, look at all this damage. And your body perceives it as, okay, I have sort of a bad infection. I have something bad going on. So your immune system cranks up. All the cytokines and other mediators that are used to defeat infections crank up, and you start hurting your own tissue. Timmy's lungs got so sick that there was a couple times I almost lost him. The amount of pressure I had to push into his lungs with that ventilator over the following 2 weeks, I can count on my hand how many times I had to do that. And what we had to do to tolerate this. And the whole time, his wife would never leave.
Yeah.
His wife, I felt bad for her. She slept on a small area. She wouldn't leave his bedside. You guys wouldn't leave his bedside. I didn't leave his bedside because I couldn't, because that's how sick he was. I mean, literally how sick he was. Because of the treatment we gave to his head, I said, if we could get him through this, I think he's going to be okay. And Timmy's okay.
So, as you stated, Timmy's wife, Janelle, she never left his side. She was at that hospital every day, every night, never left. The family, your father-in-law, John, he was there every day. And I remember he would stay every day until 12:01 a.m. And he did that because he said Timmy lived another day. Then he'd go home, get a little rest, and come back.
Apparently, Voss told him something along the lines, you correct me, every day I make it to the next day is that much closer to me making a recovery. So
Correct.
He wanted to see me make it to 12:01 the next day, every day.
Correct.
Yeah, I very vividly remember that.
And for the audience here, Tim was that critically ill. I mean, as I said, I am not someone who exaggerates things. I don't believe that's the right thing to do ever, especially when it comes to people's health and treatment. But Timmy was that sick. And it was minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. And thank the good Lord upstairs. Thank God for the support that you had around you. Thank God for your internal fortitude, because people don't survive what happened. They just don't. And the recovery you've had is just, I don't want to use the miraculous, but it's miraculous.
So, I remember speaking to you about his injuries, and you put it to me very much like you just said it, how most people don't survive that sort of injury, that sort of occurrence. So during that week, we started referring to you as the Viking, because we were like, this guy is so fucking strong. He can put up with so much that he's fighting through this. He's like a fucking Viking. And then we came up with that phrase, Thrane tough. And we, Chris Marone from the 7th Precinct wanted to take the lead in trying to put some t-shirts together, do a fundraiser for you and your family, and spread the word about how tough you were and how you're persevering through this injury. And everybody's got to continue to pray to help, in hopes that you make it through. Now, I know you don't remember this stuff as it was going on, but when you do eventually wake up, what do you remember from being told about what's been going on for the prior, week and a half?
Well, first of all, I was amazed at what everyone did. Like you two, I would say you were thrown into the fire. You were a brand new trustee, and you handled it better than anybody possibly could have. Like you said, Janelle was sleeping on a bed no bigger than this table. You guys ended up putting her in a hotel so she could stay there. My mother-in-law basically moved into my house for the month to watch the kids. So Janelle could stay at the hospital. My father-in-law, he said, would stay every night till midnight. My parents were there constantly. It was just support from everything, like Chris Marone doing the shirts. Chris Marone was the first cop on scene, too, when I got hit that night. And not to backtrack, but I was very lucky with that. Like, they were there. As far as MedCAT goes, I'm a big supporter of that because I was just lucky enough that Brian and Kevin were both working that night.
Right.
And they were both close by. Brian was on a traffic stop. Kevin was at the precinct. It's pretty close to the 7th precinct where I was hit. He was an anti-crime at the time. They both heard over the radio and got right there. They could have easily, Brian was only working because I was stuck on that accident when we overlapped with the midnights, you know. It could have easily been that there was no MedCAT guys working, but I was fortunate enough that they both were. But yeah, so when I started waking up, it's a weird thing being in a coma. Like, you don't know. I didn't know where I was. Everyone's kind of filling me in. I remember I knew at one point I was trying to ask you something, and I wrote on a piece of paper to you, was it a 1020 that hit me?
Yes.
So I still knew enough somehow to know that. Like, I don't know how, like, hearing things.
Yep.
And then I was asking who made the 32. And so I'm slowly getting filled in. I said, when you're in a coma, it was kind of, it's funny now. I had like vivid dreams of what was happening that wasn't really happening, but it seemed so real. I remember Janelle saying to me, you're in an accident, but you're okay, but we have to go to Connecticut to get treatment there. And like, I remember like driving up with the family to Connecticut, and it seemed so real. So I was up for a good 3-4 days, and I said to the nurse, where do you live? And she said, look, Islip. And I'm like, oh, you commute from Islip all the way up here to Connecticut? And she said, you think we're in Connecticut? We're in Stony Brook. I'm like, what? These dreams seem so real so it took a little time to like really, and they slowly weaned me out of the coma. So like I'd be up a little, go back out. And then all of a sudden it was like, all right, now I can comprehend everything. And then I was kind of fully there.
Was it frustrating? Like when you were waking up, were you like confused? Was it like frustrating, like not knowing what was going on, going back and forth?
Yeah, I remember I woke up freaking out about my gun, and like my cousin is also on the job. He's in an emergency service unit. He was at the scene. So he was there, same thing. And I ripped the feeding tube out of my nose. So they called him in. And I'm like, I'm just saying.
Tell them what you said about me. Go ahead.
I said nothing but good things. I'm asking him, like, where's my gun? He's like, Tim, I have your gun, your vest, your duty belt. I have all that. Don't worry. Like, we got. And I remember 5 ES guys coming in vividly, and I got like mad. I'm like, they called the S on me, like another cop. What are they doing? Like, and then a few days later, my cousin's like, no, Tim, that was just me. I was the only one there. I'm like, no, it was 5. He's like, no, I promise you, it was just me. So it was wild, like getting up and trying to realize what was going on. But
so one of the things that I was impressed with throughout this process as well, just like you said, your cousin Jim Cawley is assigned to emergency services unit. The department was very supportive of whatever you needed, right? Or whatever your family needed. And that's what I love about this department. We all we all work together to make the mission work.
Yeah. It's
not adversarial at all. And they were able to assign your cousin to the hospital to be by your bedside when you were touch and go for a while.
Yeah.
Which is a great opportunity, because in some places the reality is, the family member might have been forced to take off from work. Like, no, we can't post you there today. But we had the resources available, and the county made it work where your cousin could be there as well, because there had to be a cop assigned to the bed anyway.
Yep. No, it was great, because having cops there in general, I think, helped me a lot. I woke up, I had friends to talk to, and you want to talk cop stuff sometimes. It's different,
right? Of course.
And now you got my cousin's not just he's a cop, but he's my cousin, so he was able. He did so much. He lives far from me and would go out, pick up my parents, drive them to the hospital when he thought they were too tired. My wife, he was bringing donuts and coffee to the nurses, but he was there constantly. I said having people there when I woke up, I think really it was important. As I said, I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. not just cops, but having family there that I could talk to it helped.
So, you're a father. You had 3 young kids at home at the time of this accident. They're all still kids. They're all still young. But what was it like when you were finally becoming aware of what was going on and you did finally get to see your kids again? Like, what was that emotional roller coaster like?
Well, that was the hardest part. I'm told I was there. I wake up, I go, "You've been here for a month." I'm like, "I haven't seen my kids in a month." It was COVID at the time, so they wouldn't let the kids in the hospital. Mm-hmm. So then I'm up for like a week, and I FaceTime the kids, but I still couldn't see them. I'm like, I've never not seen my kids for this long. So that was a little hard. And then I do everything around the house. I'm like, who put up the Christmas lights? Who raked the leaves? I'm like, I got to go home. I can't be here. Kids got stuff, and but like I said, the job was so great. Everyone, like, "Tim, just relax. Someone already put your Christmas lights up. Somebody raked your leaves."
So that was one of the great things too that we were all able to witness. The cops in the 7th precinct and cops from throughout the county were reaching out almost every day to say, "What does the family need? What can I help with? What, did anybody pick up the leaves yet?" Because we were, it was right after election day. It's time to do the fall cleanup. Yeah. Did anybody put up the Christmas lights yet? Because now it's December, you're still hospitalized. And there was a cop or multiple cops who stepped up at every point in time to help the family out with these sorts of things that a lot of people take for granted.
Yeah.
And I need to butt in. I mean, listen, the support that you guys give your own, the extended family, I don't see it anywhere else. I don't see that. And there's only so far modern medicine goes, and then there's everything else. And what you guys do for each other is that everything else. And I dare to tell anybody it doesn't make a difference. I dare anyone to try to prove it to me. Because as I said, it's really a very special thing. There's that special brotherhood, sisterhood, which truly, truly makes these critically injured people get better. Please.
So I keep talking about the partnership with the county, but the hospital staff was great in that as well. I mean, they were nurses there around the clock, and you could tell that these nurses took a lot of pride in their job as well. Yeah. And these nurses were there to comfort Janelle and the family as well. Like, they took on a lot of roles during this whole process. So what's it like, Doc, to be working with a staff like you have right now in Stony Brook?
Listen, I am beyond lucky. Tremendous gratitude for the people at Stony Brook. We truly have the best of the best. We really do. If I need it, it's there. The support's there 24/7. There are other places out there that may do a job, but we do a job to the level that we excel at the job. Stony Brook's a 624 bed hospital. It's twice the size of any other hospital. The amount of redundancy specialists is superb. The amount of therapists, nurses, practitioners, outstanding, as well as the quality. Medicine and law enforcement share a special bond. As I said, we all take care of the things society needs us to. We take care of the worst of the worst, the sickest of the sick, whatever it may be. I think that shows. I think it shows in everything we do. Listen, not that we don't give excellent care to everyone else, but it just hurts a little bit more. You feel it a little bit more.
It's like part of the team.
It's part of you.
Yeah.
It's part of you. We're one group, one organism, one person, and part of us is hurting. And once again, I don't want to disparage that we don't give excellent care to everybody, but you feel it more. So, as I said, on the night of democracy, something happened to one of us. Mm. And then, unfortunately, he got so sick that we didn't know for weeks if we were going to get him through it. There were ups and downs, and some of the downs were down. So to have the outcome that we did, the Lord is good, God is good. Thank God. The team and what we do for each other is really, really, really very special.
How do you manage that emotional toll when dealing with Tim? I know you've dealt with a couple of our cops who have gone through traumatic instances. How do you manage that and get through it when it's day by day, maybe minute by minute type of situation?
Listen, it's with support from the team, from our families, support from you guys. We really are one big team here. We're one big family. We do more than work with each other. Anything happens to you guys 24/7, we're there. And I know you guys are there for us. God forbid something happens out in the streets. And, just the support we have for each other really, really, really helps. You can make the joke, fine, Jack Daniels does it, but it's nothing to joke about. It's really knowing you're not alone, that we're doing this together, no matter what. And I mean, as I said, not just to even make this level of law enforcement, there's horrible victims, you guys see it all the time, it's a poor person hit by a drunk driver, assaults, whatever it may be. I mean, once again, an innocent person falls victim to the worst part of society that you guys are there protecting us from. It hurts. But when it's one of us, it really, really, really hurts.
So in Tim's case in particular, there was a lot of general community support as well.
Yeah.
Because,
Tremendous.
yeah, a lot of a lot of the media, and I criticize mainstream media all the time, but in this case, the media did it right, and they portrayed you as this cop who was out there trying to do the right thing, and you became an innocent victim who got critically injured. And not only are you a cop out there trying to do the right thing, but you're a father, a husband, a son, a brother, right? They were saying like this is somebody who is loved by people, and the way the media portrayed that in that kind of light, the right way, it led to this being a big topic of conversation throughout the communities. And it led to all sorts of group trying to reach out to say, hey, what can I do to help? Vinny Greco, who was the owner of Hurricanes over in Maryville at the time, was sending food to your family almost every day. Project Thank a Cop was helping out. They took your kids Christmas shopping, right? Elio Weekend, Fund the First. These are all groups that help run fundraisers to help you and your family because you're a father, a husband, a family in need.
Yeah.
We had PC Richards on as well. They were helpful too during that time, right?
Yeah, PC Richards actually, that's kind of a funny story, but the day of the accident, my washing machine wouldn't drain. So my wife's like,
whatever can go wrong will go wrong.
So right before work, I take the whole thing apart. I take the pump out, and I'm like, oh, it sucked up my daughter's sock. I'm like, there's the problem. I pulled it out. And I tell Janelle, I found the problem, but I got to go to work. I'll fix it when I get home tomorrow or tonight. I never came home, so now she has no washing machine.
Oh, jeez.
So PC Richards stepped up and donated a washing machine while I was in the hospital, and which I thought that was amazing. Because, on top of everything else, Janelle having to worry about doing laundry shouldn't be on the list.
Poor girl.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you though, she was very impressive to me throughout this whole process. She, like Dr. Voss said, she wouldn't leave your side. She was doing whatever she could to help hold the family together at the same time too, which is not an easy task.
No.
And then to throw a washing machine, it hits you on top of it. It's
Yeah, luckily, they said Janelle's amazing. That's just her personality. Even being a cop, and I'm constantly at work, stuck at work, and she just handles it with the kids. But we also had the support from, I said, my parents, my in-laws, the community, friends, everybody helped out. And I don't know if she wouldn't have been able to be at the hospital at least all the time if we didn't have that support,
Right.
And I think I needed her at the hospital all the time. So.
I think that's an awesome part about this, like seeing the community come together and really like everyone pulling for you and working towards helping your family and helping everybody that was in need during that time.
I think part of that is, like I said, I work where I live, and I've lived there my whole life. And it was people kept telling me after, like, oh, a cop got hurt bad on William Floyd Parkway, and then, oh shit, it was Tim. My friend, my family, like a lot of the 7th Precinct community in Suffolk. They said I've been there my whole life, and they knew me, and it hit home different.
All right. Now, Doc, we joke about all the time that you've saved more police lives in Suffolk County than bulletproof vests.
No,
right?
no. Listen, as a team, we save more lives. All right. Well, once again, I may be the most visible person, but we're a team. And as a team, as we've been talking about, obviously, just not the great people I have around me at Stony Brook, but it's your MedCAT guys. It's you guys who are EMTs. It's us as a team. As a team, we've saved a lot of people. And that is a tremendous thing. But it's also, unfortunately, extremely sad that we've had to do so much in such a short period of time. It goes to show you how society's not right, how there shouldn't be a need for what we're doing. There really, really shouldn't. And I don't want to get on my soapbox here, but it's not safe for you guys. That's not right. I hope everybody that listens to this podcast, just as law enforcement, that they realize that we have to change society. I mean, not to change the topic from Timmy. Look at poor Gallagher.
Yeah, Brendan Gallagher.
You had a guy, let's not talk about the first time, where unfortunately you had a mentally disturbed person that the social workers couldn't handle and called the police. Okay, a case right here that, it's great and social workers do play an important role, but they're not going to solve our mental health crisis. Because we had a known mental health patient who was having a crisis. It couldn't be dealt with medically. It required law enforcement, and he almost lost his life there.
Right.
And then we have, a year and a half later, someone who thinks it's fun to drive cars fast. Because we don't care about anyone. It's what I care about. And I'm going to drive cars fast, and I'm just going to speed, and I don't feel like I have to listen to what society says. And obviously, with the face of society is law enforcement. And we almost kill an innocent guy who came to work just to do his job because I want to do what I want to do. So for the people out there who are listening, who are not in law enforcement, all this needs to stop. These are the things that are creating issues that our team doesn't need to be addressing. There is accidents, and then there is things that are not accidents because they're preventable, and they shouldn't have got to that point. So I got on a tangent, but I had to get that out.
So, and along with that tangent, Brendan came on the show. He talked about his 2 incidents, right? And the treatment that he received from you and the staff at Stony Brook and our MedCAT team. We also had Mike LaForce on the show.
Correct.
Spoke about his incident where he got shot in the leg. And he's another one who was treated by Kevin Staubitz, right? So these MedCAT guys, they really are out there saving lives all the time.
And you don't see half of what they do. We're talking about the high-profile stuff, whereas police officers, they're out there delivering babies. They're out there providing advanced life support to agencies that don't have it. They're out there going into situations where our EMTs can. Once again, I don't want to all diminish the importance of our volunteer EMTs, but by having police officers, the EMTs, who get to scenes first many a time because they're out there in sector cars, and that you guys are defibrillating people and bringing their heart, restarting their hearts, that you're stopping bleeding by putting a tourniquet on, that you're delivering a baby potentially, all before our volleys can get there. Look at the good you're doing there. Then let's take it higher. We have the MedCAT guys who are also now countywide, and they have their own unit, and they're responding, putting breathing tubes in, getting to scenes quicker, providing things, supplementing what our volunteers do. I mean, the way I look at law enforcement in Suffolk County, the Suffolk County Police, listen, you guys are the guardians of the county. And that's not to sound over the top. It's not to sound dramatic, but you guys are the guardians of the county. You are protecting us. You're protecting our loved ones. You're keeping order, and you're providing care and critical first aid when there isn't someone there yet to do it or can't do it. And that is a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous thing that we will always be in debt and gratitude for you guys for.
Yeah, well, thank you for everything you do to help direct all that and make that possible. Now, when our police officers go through Stony Brook and go through some sort of treatment like this, we always eventually do a ceremonial walkout, right? And it's always a great day, huge turnout. Cops from all over the county show up, members of the community show up, elected officials. And it's a great ceremony to say, all right, you're moving on to the next step in treatment, whether it be rehab or going home, whatever the case may be. So being that you're somebody who actually experienced one of those walkouts firsthand, what was that like? What's going through your mind the morning of and leading up to the walkout, and then when it's happening?
It's great. Like I said, I knew of the support already from the community, but then seeing it firsthand when you walk out and there's a sea of cops, family, friends, like I said, people you don't even know, just community members coming to support you. I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to have like a couple of them, because I had one in Stony Brook, and I went to rehab at St. Charles and then did it again there. And then even the 7th Precinct lined up in front of my house when I got home. That was great, just to see everybody and like personally say thank you, you know. I remember leaving Stony Brook, I was still pretty banged up. I think you asked me, do I want to talk to the media? I'm like, nah, I just want to go home. And you talk to them. And it was the same thing. I got to St. Charles. I'm like, I just want to go home and see my kids, you know. But seeing that support on the way out it's amazing.
You know, whenever we're at one of those sort of ceremonies, hearing the pipes and the drums, that's always emotional for me. Like to me, that gets me every time. No. So, what's it like to hear those pipes and drums start beating and pounding when they're there for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's different because I'm the same way. That sometimes you get emotional with the pipes and drums, but this is more of a happy moment. Now I'm going home, I'm seeing my kids, and it just felt more like all these guys are supporting me. Like, you can do this, Tim. You're gonna leave. You're leaving here now. You're gonna leave St. Charles, and you're gonna get back to work. And we're here for you.
Right.
There's not a dry eye.
Right.
There's not a dry eye. You know, you don't have a soul if that doesn't get you to the core.
Yeah.
You really, really don't. And it is an outstanding, positive thing, but it shouldn't have to happen.
Right. So when you leave Stony Brook, you go to St. Charles for rehab, right? How long were you in the rehab again?
I ended up only being there 6 days. They wanted me there.
Not even a couple weeks.
They wanted me there for a few weeks. I was arguing with Voss for
now it comes out. Here we go.
I'll be the first to tell you, like, I was a pain in the ass when I woke up. And the nurses there were amazing. And Voss got the brunt of it. But, you know, he wouldn't let me eat. I had to trach in. And I'm like, this is worse than prison. I can't eat. I can't do anything.
I'm a Viking. I need to eat.
And then what did I tell you? I go, you were being a dick when you were asleep. So it all worked out well. We had our little, we had our moment. We communicated and we had our relationship.
I know, right there. Whatever tubes they already removed, Voss is like, we can put those back in. You can stay another couple weeks. I'm like, all right.
So now that Voss said it, you were being a dick when you were asleep, right? So
he was trying to die. I mean, come on.
Every night I was getting an update from Voss, and he was keeping the PBA and the county apprised of what was going on. What we're hoping for the next day. And I swear, almost every night, the conversation either started with, Tim was being a dick today, or Tim wasn't being a dick today. But that's like your normal terminology on how you describe how a patient's doing.
Why else would you try to die?
Right.
Being a dick.
Right.
It's as simple as that. It had nothing to do with the disease process. Or they didn't want to die. It was just being a dick.
When I woke up, like I said, the nurses were amazing, but I'm sleeping the whole time, but I was being a dick apparently while I was sleeping. They tied me to the bed because I kept trying to take the stuff out. So when I wake up, he's telling me, my wife's telling me, you know, you were kind of rude to this nurse. You did it. So now I'm meeting all these, like, oh, so, you know, I'm sorry if I was a dick. But, you know, that's not normally how I am. And then I felt bad because I said, the nurses were amazing. Like, I can't, but I'm like, I'm hurting, and I remember I kept sliding off the bed, so I had to keep calling them, like, I'm falling off the bed again, and then like 2 female nurses have to slide me back up in the bed. I'm like, sorry, guys. But
so eventually you go to St. Charles for rehab. You're there for 6 days.
Well, and just for the audience, we're being verbose here, all right? He really wasn't being a dick. All right? It was, it was just, listen.
That's not a medical diagnosis.
No, listen. And it's, listen, but it goes to show you the bond and the family that we're talking about. Because, you know, Tim was that sick that despite everything medicine was doing and despite him fighting and everyone that's there, the disease process was trying to get the better of him. And the disease process was trying to take Timmy's life. And there was many times it was really minute by minute and definitely hour by hour. And, in a, as you said, how do you deal with the stress of it? How do you deal with everything else? Humor.
Right.
Timmy was being a dick.
Best medicine right there.
Right.
Listen, Timmy was being a dick. Mm-hmm. From that perspective. And fortunately, he realized and his wife realized that he's not a dick. And he got better. That's what it comes down
But Voss
to.
didn't know me, and then now I have a head injury. So he's like, now is this always Tim? It's like, yeah, he's always kind of a dick.
So everything was validated at the end. Everything was fine.
That's the man she fell in love with.
Yeah.
So on the day of the walkout, I had heard whispers that you might try to walk out instead of get wheeled out. Because a lot of times, right, at the hospital at Stony Brook, you were wheeled out.
Yeah.
A lot of times you're wheeled out of these walkouts that we refer to. But at rehab, you were determined to walk out.
Yeah.
And it was a great surprise to everybody there who didn't know that this was going to be part of the plan, that you were wheeled from your room down to the lobby of the rehab center, but you walked out of the rehab center.
Yeah. I wanted to walk the whole way. They made me.
He was being a dick.
I was being a dick to that doctor too at St. Charles because like I said, they wanted me there for weeks. I wanted to go home. I'm like, I'm done. Whatever you want me to do. Like, well, you got stairs at home. We have to see if you could walk up the stair. I'm like, all right, where's the stairs? Let's go walk the stairs. So, and slowly lost the walker, lost the cane. And now I'm walking. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go home. And the doctor came in one day. He's like, I think you might be able. He's like, let me see if I can push it like Thursday or probably Friday. You'll go home. I'm like, no, you said Thursday. So I'm like, and I'm walking out of here. I can walk now. And they're like, well, we have to wheel you to the front. And I'm like, whatever, just get me out of here. And yeah, that was it.
That's so motivating to hear. Like that you went that far that you basically needed to walk out of there. I read an article about you were a wrestler, right? Correct?
Yeah.
And I was reading this article about how you went back and you were honored at was it ESM? Or,
yeah, that was really cool.
And they honored you one night where they had a wrestling match. And one of the kids was interviewed after. I guess he was losing in the fight, and he credited you for pushing him through that moment to get him across and to finally pin his opponent.
Yeah, that was really nice. They did that. So I wrestled for both Eastport, South Manor, and Shoreham, Wade River when I went to high school, and both. Wrestling's a lot like being a cop, like a brotherhood. A lot of guys I wrestled with back in high school, I'm still friends with, And I remember the Eastport team, when I came home, they made a whole YouTube montage of everyone wishing me well, get better. And then Shoreham, my old coach, they were wrestling ESM, so it was both my old teams, and they wanted to make it a Tim Thrane night in honor of me. And I went and spoke to the wrestlers beforehand, told them my story, and got to meet them, and it was great.
Yeah, see, I love nights like that, especially when you get the kids in the community involved, right? The young wrestlers, the kids that are in high school and junior high, to be able to hear a story like yours and then get motivated by it too. The way Tanner said it, he read the article. A kid like your story gave him the courage and the fortitude to push through adversity.
Yeah, well, I'm a big proponent of wrestling because I think it teaches kids hard work, discipline, perseverance, all these things you're going to use the rest of your life. You're not going to become a pro wrestler, but you're going to learn things from it that are important for the rest of your life. And that's kind of what I told them and I honestly think it helped me get him back. Like I said, I had to go to St. Charles and I had a year of rehab after. And it's I got to put the work in. But I'm like this. I'm used to putting the work in. I wrestled in high school. I've always worked out. I've always I'm not shy to putting the work in. What do I got to do? Let's do it.
And Tim, your story really exemplifies that, though. As far as sports, we grew up playing sports. I mean, these are the things you really talk about from sports, the adversity, getting through adversity. And it's really surreal to see you come back and have that effect on the kids because it's really that incident, something like that. That's a real world incident that you apply what you learned in sports.
Yep.
It's the real world.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, kind of what I told the wrestlers, beforehand. What you guys are learning now in wrestling, you might not realize it, but life's going to throw things at you like this, and you're going to fall back onto this. You already learned as far as hard work and discipline and all that good stuff.
So once you got back home from rehab and you're surrounded by your family again, and you get to spend time with your children again. What was the at-home rehab like? Like, what was it like getting reacclimated to being home and, daddy being back?
It was obviously it was right before Christmas, so I wanted to make it home before Christmas. I already missed Thanksgiving in the hospital. I'm like, I'm going home before Christmas. I don't care what the boss says, what anybody says. I'm getting out of here. So just being home for the holidays, finally getting to see everybody. But I was messed up for a while. I couldn't sleep. I was still in a neck brace. Janelle had to treat like the wound for my trach. I had knee surgery shortly after in February. So then I was laid up again with like a big brace. And then they wouldn't let me drive at first. And
now I'm being
Janelle had to drive me to all. First, I had a physical therapist come into the house a few times a week, and I had a nurse come into the house. And then I started doing outpatient physical therapy. But she had to drive me at first. But that too, I remember as soon as Janelle left the house, I drove, and I saw a neighbor, and I'm like, "Don't tell Janelle." He's like, "Your secret's safe with me, Tim." But I can't be. I don't like being confined to the hospital, to a house. Luckily, I became a cop, because if I was on the other side, I wouldn't do well in jail. I need to get out.
Yeah, so when you're going through the rehab, there was a period of time where we weren't sure if you were going to ever return back to work.
Yeah.
I know you love being a cop. Was your love of being a cop part of that motivation to get through the rehab and stick to it? Like, what was kind of going through your head with thinking that, your career might be cut short at that point in time?
Yeah. There's a lot that go into that. I always say everything I do for my kids. Every decision I make, it's what's best for them. So even with that, it's complex. Like financially, what's the best decision? Then it's also like, what kind of example am I setting for them? But then it's also, I love my job. I said, I'm not the type to sit home and do nothing. And I love my kids. But I'm not the stay-at-home dad type. I'm like, I don't know if I'd be happy not working. And I was still young on the job, and I still enjoy going to work. I think since I've gone back to work, I don't ever regret making that decision. I think if I stayed home, I would have regretted it. But it's ultimately, I kind of left the decision in my wife's hands, because I'm like, listen, you went through this worse than me. You got woken up in the middle of the night. I don't remember any of this. I'm in a coma. You're figuring out the house, me at the hospital, all these things. I'm like, what do you want me to do? I'll do whatever you want. And she knew, though, like, you love your job. I know you wouldn't be happy not going back to work. And she basically said, I joked that I got the Teddy Roosevelt Award, and I spoke there. And she said, I know you love your job, and I'm not ever going to be the one to tell you that you can't do what you love. And I was like, that might be one of those things that wives say where you're supposed to kind of figure out. She's trying to say something else. But I'm like, that's good enough for me. So I went back to work. And I think, ultimately, I think it was the right decision.
So I'm glad you brought up the Teddy Roosevelt Award, too, because that's a great honor, right? That's one of those great awards that gets given out annually to somebody who has faced a major injury, a major illness, is facing maybe death or having to retire, not coming back to work, but you work through it and come back to work anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So it's one of those great honors, and you fit the bill perfectly for that Teddy Roosevelt Award. So I was happy to hear that you got it last year.
Yeah, it's a beautiful ceremony and award. It was very nice. And, I said there to him, it's an award you hope you're never a candidate for, but
right.
When you are, it's nice to know it's not unnoticed that people. It's not easy getting. It's not easy making that decision to go back to work, and then it's not easy getting back to full duty. I had to kind of argue with some doctors and that's what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Some doctors.
Speaking of, Doctor, how do you feel sitting here with Timmy right now and seeing him from that moment he came in to where he is right now? How does it make you feel?
Yeah, if he gets upset, it's okay, but you guys have to post this. That picture right there. Okay?
Yeah.
This is Timmy with his daughter. 1 year after the accident, his wife threw a little get-together. for his alive day.
Yeah.
And to see him with his daughter, and his daughter, I don't want to get emotional here, hugging him like this. I'll work 24/7 for the rest of my life if I can do something like this for people. But it also says a lot about Timmy. Look at Timmy. Timmy cares about his family. He's there for his family. And that Timmy, despite what happened, once again, by a drunk driver, and what could have happened and what didn't if it wasn't for everything we talked about. Here, and feel free to post this on your website afterwards.
Yeah, we'll
You can send it to us and we'll post it with
I'll send it with this picture. And I don't know if you can zoom in real quick. I don't know if you guys can zoom in quick.
Yeah,
but
we'll post it on.
But that almost was no more. Okay. And that's why what we do. That's why you guys are out there. That's why MedCAT is out there. That's why everyone in the medical community works as hard as we can do. Because that should never be taken away. You know, that little girl needs a daddy. And nobody's going to love her more than Timmy.
The thing Voss doesn't tell you, he's a humble guy, but what's amazing about him is he's not just a doctor that comes in, does your surgery, you're better, and you don't see him again. So that's a year after my accident, my wife threw a party. Voss was there, took that picture. We're still friends. He stays involved probably the rest of my life. Like he wants to make sure that you didn't just get better physically, but you're going to go back to work if that's what you want, or if you want to retire, like whatever it is that's going to make you happy, he's going to help you get there. And it's hard to do. Like I said, most doctors, you get a surgery and then you see their PA and you never see them again. Like I said, Voss, I remember early on, I'm like, all right, so this is it. I'm leaving Stony Brook. He's like, no, you're stuck with me for at least a year. You come and see me, and I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
But I don't think the public or people that weren't in an incident like me and were treated by Voss, like generally know or see, like behind the scenes, that how much he actually cares and stays in the picture.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because I think that's a great testament to Dr. Vosswinkel's character. And I think it's a great example of why he's the perfect fit to be the police department's medical director as well. So as your role continues here in the county, what are your hopes for the MedCAT team going forward? Do you have a vision of, like, say, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan of where you want to see this program?
So, listen, I want to see things keep advancing. And listen, the first thing, I'd be very remiss if I didn't shout out and talk about the tremendous amount of support we have for MedCAT. Okay? Commissioner Catalina, Chief Doherty, Chief Hardy, I can keep going on. The county executive, they realize what MedCAT does. Okay? And they're putting resources into it. You know, so currently from when I take over, we now have what's called the MedCAT unit, right? Medical Crisis Action Section Unit, where we have 2 first responder vehicles countywide on the road during the day and evening. And then at night, we have a midnight car. And they're there to provide not only advanced life support if necessary, but they're there to support every cop who's an EMT. If they have questions, they're at the scene. One of their own is on the radio. So in addition to our volunteer service, you now have a boss, right? You have a paramedic, someone with 2,000 hours worth of training versus 110. Somebody who can deal with the sickest of the sick. So that if a cop gets to that scene and he's like, oh, wow, or he doesn't know something, boom, on a radio, there's going to be a MedCAT guy, a MedCAT guy. There's the MedCAT officers in all the precincts that provide additional support. I would love to see the program to continue to advance. It's saving lives. It's saving disability. It is doing things like we wouldn't believe. And we're not even talking about, God forbid, if a mass casualty ever happens. God forbid if we have a Uvalde. God forbid, and we can name a lot of places. That there's now a resource that will go in there, and they will go into that hot zone. They will go into that unsecured scene. They will, with the police officers, be able to start providing life-saving training and save lives. So let's take out then we are better prepared as a county than a lot of people from this access if the unthinkable happens. But on a day-to-day basis, we're there to provide as we need. And also for every violent situation, every barricade situation, every other situation, there's a level of medical expertise happening. And everybody on MedCAT sacrificing their own well-being to do this. And I would be remiss too. All these guys did this additional training on their own time. So these guys were all what's called EMTCCs or critical care. They all on their own did what's called the bridge program, and on their own, not being paid, they all decided to advance for a paramedic. They did all that work because they wanted to get that highest level. So everybody who's a MedCAT officer is the highest level out there. They're all doing this because they want to do this, and they're the ones that really should be getting the gratitude. We haven't talked much about each one of them, and you can talk about each person. They go above and beyond, and they deserve our gratitude.
Yeah,
At the highest level, please.
I think you said it perfectly, because this is such an asset to the county, and it's something that I continue to be impressed with. The more I learn about them, and the more examples I see of their success out on the road. So, Tim, you've been promoted to detective, right? And you're a guy who as a young cop, you were an active cop. You were kind of starting to perform your own little investigations when you were in Sector Car 707. So you were on that career path from the very beginning. Now that you are finally a detective and doing that investigatory work, how do you like doing it? Is it everything you hoped it would be?
Yeah, I love it, honestly. I think even more than what I thought it would be. It's something, you still get to be a cop, go out, make arrests, but getting a case from start to finish and solving that case and then making the arrest and being able to call that victim. Like I figured out who did this. I made the arrest on him. It's nothing but like that. To me, that's what being a cop is. It's rewarding.
Yeah. And, now not only are you a detective doing the investigations, but you're also an SDA delegate too. Yeah. Right. So you're somebody who's respected by your peers, and you've been elected to now be a detectives union representative for your fellow detectives. Yeah.
Which I also enjoy. I never just kind of happened. Never saw myself going that path. And, it came up and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And it's the same thing. I think it's somebody needs to be there and represent the other guys and help them when times get tough, like you did for me when I was hurt. And I enjoy it.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear. It's great to see your career kind of come fully back together. You're right where you should have been, even if you never got hurt, right? So it's great to see that, that success that you're having.
Yeah.
So, I just want to thank you both for coming on the show. I think we talked a lot about the MedCAT unit, about Stony Brook Hospital, about some of the services that get provided. Is there anything that you guys want to touch on that maybe we didn't hit on at all?
I just got to say thank you for what you guys do. I really, really do.
We thank you for what you do. You keep our members.
Well, listen, you guys keep me and my family safe. And you guys are providing a level of guardianship and saving, which is unsurpassed.
Yeah, well, thank you both for coming on. I appreciate it. Tim, it's great to see you as always. Dr. Voss.
Always.
Yep.
Always. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Tanner here from On Patrol with the Suffolk PBA. Just a reminder to all our viewers to like, subscribe, follow, and share our content across all platforms.